Well, hello and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Slow Motion Broadcasting, and welcome to the Sim Racers Group Intermediate F4 Championship. So happy you can all join us for the start of this brand new adventure set to begin right now. This is round number 1 of the season, coming to you tonight from Mugello. My name is Ron Maunz. Alongside me in the commentary booth is Joshua Wilkie, and in the virtual production hall we have Adam Thompson. To begin this new year and start a new season, we rock up to New Mugello, a really fantastic racetrack in my book. Not only are the views fantastic around this place, but the fast flowing track layout is a hoot to drive around. So putting some slightly bigger go-karts around here where drafting past your competitors will certainly be the name of the game. We have a night of racing action that is going to be fantastic. Josh, Happy New Year, and happy to be a part of this broadcast with you for a season opener, which is set to be quite the spectacle.
Yeah, absolutely, Ron. This is going to be a great one, I think. We got some really good grassroots racing here with the SRG Sim Racers group here on Slow Motion Broadcasting, and it's a really, really good combo here with Mugello and the F4 cars, like you were saying, on the run-up here. Nice, super flowy, fast track, pretty technical, so I would imagine there's going to be a bit of a skill gap today as well between some of our drivers here, because this track is not an easy one to get around, Ron, and with the most practice you're going to put in here is probably going to win out the day.
And thankfully, we are in this practice session right now. These drivers have 1 hour of practice before we head off into a 15-minute qualifying session, followed by a 20-minute long race to bring tonight's racing action to a close, running around a racetrack as well, which is, it still feels like it's a newer one onto the iRacing platform, despite the fact it was now introduced a year ago. It was introduced for Season 1 of 2024, and this 3.26-mile-long 15-turn road course plucked out of wine country in Italy is a wonderful ride in the world of motorsports, and fitting that we have a wonderful series running around it. And let's touch on some of the championship points, because this is not the season opening race. We do have some races already on the board, and here's how the championship points look. In the Inter 1 category, it is Alex Velasco in the 777 car, currently the championship leader with 25 points on the board. 25 points is just about as much as you get from one of these races if you win it. Josh Corwin in the 37 and P2, Chris Cook running at your top 3 in the Inter 1 category. You can see the rest of the drivers classified through the rest there. And here's the Inter 2 category. Chris Wang in the 14 car, currently the championship leader, 25 points on the board. Only have to go 2 back, though, to find Jose Navas Molina in the number 4 car, currently in P2. Then you have to go a little bit farther back to find Adam Duvall in the lucky number 13 car. Finds himself 3rd at the moment in the Inter 2 championship standings. That rounds out your top 3, and you can go through the rest of them. Now we have a very big class, the Inter-Alien category. Stephen Case in the 243 car, 25 points on the board. We were told by series admin and someone who I believe has made some appearances on the past here on Slow Motion Broadcasting as a driver in another series covered here, the Weekend Warriors series that you can catch every single Sunday, that being Jason Cotcher, that Stephen Case, it's fitting that he's in the Inter-Alien category. He is blisteringly quick, certainly proving that in the practice session right now, saying a 1 minute 47.868. That is a very good lap time. Finds himself well ahead of the rest of the competition.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I was saying there, Ron, we're going to get a bit of a skill gap probably here today. There being 3 different classes of driver in here today. So we've got some kind of rookie drivers. We got some kind of intermediate drivers. And then today we have our alien Stephen Case. And, we're hoping during, throughout the season here that we're going to find some, people are going to find some pace, and they're going to be able to learn from the faster drivers around them and so on. And maybe we'll have some more aliens for next season, or maybe even during the season here if some people can move up as they win some races and stuff. So it should be a pretty interesting dichotomy here between the 3 classes. And, unfortunately right now we only have 1 alien out there, but we're hoping to promote some more aliens here with the series as it goes on.
And looking at some of the other drivers running in this series, I am bracing myself for the driver of the number 25 car. And firstly, I want to apologize to Varun if I completely butcher your last name pronunciation. I would like to deeply, deeply apologize. But I believe it is Balasubramaniam, I believe would be the last name pronunciation of the driver of the number 25 car. Currently finding himself 2nd at the moment. He is currently leading in the Inter 1 category in that number 25 car. Finds himself about a 10th in front of, I believe that is Paborgi in the number 023, currently third overall, second of the Inter 1 racers. Still have a little bit of time left in this practice session. Oh, and that's off track for Michaelwitz in the 888 car. That's coming out of turn number 12 there, Josh. Part of the very tough last sector around this circuit.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a bunch of really tough sections like that around here, Ron, for sure. And I think we're going to go on board here with Kellen here for a moment, and maybe we can just hit a couple of these corners. This being probably one of the best places we're going to get a pass done today is actually down the straightaway. Not sure why he's clipping the grass there. Maybe just testing her out, but got a big run down into T1 here. And then things just start to get real complicated after that. So right in here, we're going to see probably 2 wide, maybe 3 wide. Coming down into T1 here into the right-hander. You want to definitely get her set up nice and early and get on the gas as early as you possibly can. And then it kind of starts to get a little bit GP motorcycle through this section right here where you really kind of want to pith path from the left to the right. If you get that first part wrong, you're going to get the whole section wrong, unfortunately. And that kind of continues up through here with a very similar section to the first one here as well. Pretty similar pith path section here. Again, you got to get that first part right. Oh, and he gets a little bit of tire in the dirt there, which you're not going to want to do. Downhill section here, took a ton of speed into the entry there, actually held it very well. Pretty darn good line through there. We saw want to take a ton of curb on the inside. Once again, pretty much flat out in the F4s around here with all that downforce they're able to put down on the track. And that was, again, looked like it was totally flat out in 5th gear. Coming down to a big braking section here into another right-left section, and then back out to probably one of the other better spots you're going to be able to get a draft and a pass done here on. And then out into where we just saw somebody lose it here. And this is a pretty difficult section to get her slowed down, get it back on the gas nice and early. And then we're entering some more kind of MotoGP sections here on if you want to take over this last section here.
Yeah, only one more corner left to go, and in my view, it's one of the most challenging. This is turn number 15, whose Italian name pronunciation I will not even attempt on account of the fact that I don't want my relatives to be crying as they tune into this broadcast. That's a really tricky final corner to complete a lap around Mugello, and it's an important corner as well because coming out of that and going on to this very long start-finish straightaway before you head your way off into turn number 1, one of the heaviest braking opportunities around this lap is one of the best overtaking opportunities as well. So these racers going to put a bit more importance into that run out of the final corner. But I like how you mentioned a couple of times during that track guide, Josh, how this track, certain points of it, you can kind of tell that it is primarily used for motorcycle racing. MotoGP, it is a staple of the MotoGP calendar, but it did hold the Formula One. I believe it was I believe it was the Tuscan Grand Prix back in 2020. I'll have to fact check myself to see whether or not that name was correct. I think it was the Tuscan Grand Prix in the very odd season, which was 2020 when we had 3 Italian Grand Prix. And any F1 history buffs out there if you're interested in this little fun fact. It was only the second time in the history of Formula One that there's been 3 Grand Prix held in the same country in the same calendar year. So there's a nice little fun fact for you. Some drivers are already attempting to get wait, don't bring up the 2020. It's the 2020 F1 championship, not the 2021 one. That would end in flames. But some drivers already attempting some moves heading off into turn number 1. That was Christopher Wang in the number 14 car. You're seeing him go side by side a couple of moments ago. It was him and I believe, unless I'm very much mistaken, that was the number 11 of Day. Those two were going side by side a couple of moments ago off into turn number 1. It's a good overtaking opportunity, Josh, but you need to get it done decisively, because if you're still side by side through 2 and 3, you're gonna find yourself in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, you might not just find yourself in a lot of trouble, but you're definitely going to find yourself getting slowed down around here. Really good point there, Ron. When you want to get a pass done around here, you're going to have to make it pretty aggressive and just get it done. Because if you don't, you're going to be side by side, or even just a little bit side by side entering or exiting a corner. And you really need to kind of be hitting the one line that's fastest around here, especially in these F4 cars. So definitely a good point to bring up there, as we saw some of our guys there kind of racing around in practice, just getting used to maybe where a pass can be made, maybe where we're going to hit the brakes, maybe where it's going to be a little bit different line they're going to have to take to get something done. And we're probably going to see a lot of that. And it's a really good way to kind of get your eye in before the race does actually start.
And that's the thing when it comes to races like this, where around a racetrack like this as well, there's not a whole lot of overtaking opportunities. Certainly, there's certainly more than you'd see in like an F1 car or like a sports car, for instance, because these cars, they draft so heavily. You don't really think of the Formula 4 cars. My apologies, not the Formula Fords. You don't think of the Formula 4s as one that are incredibly draft heavy, but they buck that trend. They are really good race cars in terms of the battles that they can put on great racing just about anywhere. So as much as turn one won't be the only overtaking opportunity, certainly going to be one of the easier overtaking opportunities that these drivers will look to try and utilize come time for this 20-minute race that we have coming up in the not too far off future. Still about 2 minutes left to go in this practice session, so we still have a little bit of time left on the board. Should let everybody know that if you are enjoying the broadcast thus far here on Slow Motion Broadcasting, you should probably hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you never miss out on any of the racing action here on SMB, because have it be known that the action that we have here just about never stops. Following the number 93 car of Embrite Hyde, currently in 17th at the moment in this practice session with 18 cars setting times. And look at that field, Josh. A decent chunk of them, with a few exceptions here and there, basically vacuum sealed together.
Yeah, that's boding pretty well for the race here. I think we're probably going to have a pretty good one throughout the entire classes. And we were mentioning earlier on the run up there that overall we are seeing sort of an overall lineup right now. They actually are split into 3 different classes, and they will actually be getting points based on those classes, not their overall position necessarily. So that'll be a bit of an interesting thing out there, where you might have somebody in a different class. They're kind of maybe making your day a little bit difficult, but you are just going to have to deal with them out there. And that person maybe in the lower class is going to be thinking, hey, maybe they should let this guy by. So it can get a little bit interesting, in the head as well while you're driving out there, and the dichotomy between the other drivers and the different classes as well. So it'll be interesting to kind of see how that plays out when comes race time here.
And one more thing that we should probably mention, as we only have about 20 seconds left in this practice session, should probably talk a little bit about SRG Sim Racers Group themselves, because SRG is basically sim racers heaven in Southern California. You can rent out sim rigs and get the opportunity to drive against some of your friends in league races like this and many other settings as well. So we want to thank SRG for organizing this series and making these broadcasts possible, and really looking forward to the night of racing action that we have in store. The checkered flag now out in this practice session. Case, as we kind of expected, considering he's described by the series admin as an alien, up at the front, 4/10 in front of the driver, the number 25 car, right behind Paborgi, my apologies there. He was in third in that practice session. But now into this 15-minute long qualifying session, Josh. And unlike some of the other series here on Slow Motion Broadcasting, it's not solo qualifying session. 15 minutes with all the cars out there on the racetrack. Didn't really mention it during practice, but for qualifying, the traffic out there on the racetrack may play a pretty big role as to who can set some good lap times and who's going to be struggling a little bit farther towards the mid-pack.
Yeah, absolutely. It really does change the dynamic of things when everybody's on track at once in qualifying, Ron. And a lot of us here that I race, often don't really get to see that often, right? We're out there qualifying kind of by ourselves in the official races and stuff most of the time. And then when you get in one of these leagues, all of a sudden you're on track with, sometimes 40 cars, 50 cars. Tonight we have a pretty good field as well. And you're really going to have to be aware of stuff like that. And I'm not exactly sure how they're going to steward things like that in qualifying, but penalties can be dealt out for getting in the way or going off track too many times. So there's a lot of things you need to think about in qualifying as well, not to get in front, not to get in anybody's way, and maybe even use a draft here and there too if you can get sneaky about it, Ron.
I will mention one thing in reference to the draft, though, Josh. It's a bit of a double-edged sword, because you've got the strong draft benefits heading down that start-finish straightaway, which takes up a decent chunk of the lap. But throughout all the fast corners around this racetrack, as much as the wings on a Formula 4 race car are basically painted planks of wood stapled to the front and the back of these race cars, it still punches a hole in the air, and you get that dirty air coming off of these race cars, and that will be a real pain in the butt. It'll be a pain in the tires as well, as we see the number 99 car with a mega sideways snap heading off. That was through turn number going through my track map there. That was through turn number 10 a couple of moments ago. The turn 10 and 11 chicane, a section like that which is kind of repeated around this racetrack. Turns 2 and 3, 4 and 5, 6 and 7, and 10 and 11. Very similar. You got those sections that kind of repeat itself around this racetrack. But despite having the same sort of blueprint, Josh, all 4 of those sections of this racetrack have like a completely different feel.
Yeah, that's kind of a good point, Ron. Actually, they do kind of feel the same and they look the same, or sorry, they look the same. And maybe to the untrained eye, they look the same, but they're really not. When you're in the car, they feel kind of drastically different. They have different entry points, they have different apexes, and different exits as well. And you have to kind of figure all 3 of them out. I believe one of them's even kind of downhill facing, while some of the other 2 are sort of uphill facing, and that does make a difference. And these are things that the drivers are going to have to think about when they're out there, especially when they're going in to make a pass. Or, as you said, if you get a little bit right up underneath someone else, you can actually lose a bit of that downforce that these cars provide, which isn't really very much, as you were saying as well there, Ron. So all kinds of stuff to think about at Mugello, which was, pretty technical track when it comes down to it.
Yeah, it is a very technical racetrack, this, and I will go back to that point in a couple of moments, Tom. I just want to say the comment from our producer, Adam, while we were following Jose Fuentes in a very nice-looking SpongeBob car. There it is, the number 89, heading its way off through turn number 3. And right now, I would try and sing some of the songs from SpongeBob. I don't want this stream to get any sort of copyright claim, so I will leave it at that. Believe me, I know that copyright claims could be a bit of a pain in the butt in the YouTube world, so I will leave it at that and go back to the technicalities of this racetrack. But at this point in time, Josh, these drivers are starting their first qualifying laps. Gonna get some lap times on the board in a few moments time. We're gonna see if these drivers can convert that pace that they showed in practice into the race, into the qualifying session, I should say. And we'll just have to wait and see how these drivers stack up.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to get out there, on that first lap and see if you can't get the tires warmed up. It might take, I would imagine maybe just 2 laps really in the F4 car, especially around here at Mugello, where you're really hustling that mechanical grip on the car. You're going to get some heat into them pretty quick. And then you want to go out there and try to just put down the best lap you can. And, I know personally for me, for some reason, when I get into qualifying, I'm just always able to find a little bit more. I don't know if it's focus or in practice, you're kind of trying to find the limits. And then in qualifying, you sort of put it all together. And that's what they're trying to do out there today. And we're really going to see, between the 3 classes, who can put it together here. And, maybe we can even see somebody from a different class pip somebody from a higher class than them today. But, this is our first race that me and you have done here with the SRGs. And we are in round 3, so we didn't really get to see, the pace of the drivers up until today. So it's a bit of a journey of discovery for both of us as well today, Ron.
Yeah, we're going to be dipping our toes in the water to see how these drivers are running all throughout this season. As we were riding on board, that was a very big moment of understeer for Parborgi in that 023 car coming around turn number 12 a couple of moments ago. That is another very tough corner. There's certain corners around this racetrack that feel like they go on for 1,000 years. Those outside tires going to be screeching in pain heading through turns like turn number 12 and turn 15 as well. A little bit of understeer that's possibly going to affect his time, but let's see if it is any sort of good pace from him. Looks like that lap time may have been I think that lap time was invalidated, so that's not going to count. That's another thing as well, those off-track encounters, that's going to hurt you in this qualifying session. You need to get some sort of lap time on the board, otherwise you're going to be well farther back as it stands at the moment in the 3 classes. Well, in Inter Alien, it is shocker of all shockers, Stephen Case in the 243 car. In the front at the moment, setting a 1-minute 49.23. Right as I was going to mention the fact that Jason Cotcher was at the front in Inter 1, he is usurped by De Silva in the 480 car. Meanwhile, in the Inter 2 category, it's now Christopher Wang at the front there. So right as I was going to mention that Wang was doing good in the Inter category, he then gets usurped by Cardenas in the number 92. So lots of movers and shakers going on at this point in the qualifying session, with more drivers saying sometimes on the board.
Yeah, that's always a great sign in qualifying, Ron. That means definitely we got a little bit of a mix-up, at least in that class there for sure, where, cars are kind of starting to heat up and stuff here, as well as, it looks like some people are kind of pulling on that draft I was talking about a little bit as well, or at least attempting to. Not going to be an easy thing to do around here, like you mentioned before, as you kind of have to follow the guy around maybe and sort of trying to kind of milk that pace until you can actually use it on the straightaway and see if you can't get that draft in without, maybe crowding the guy in front of you, putting too much pressure on him, maybe make him spin or something like that. So it might not be a too good idea to get too close, but you definitely want to make sure that you try to pull that draft right when you need it, probably down the front straight here if you can time it just right.
Yeah, the timing is going to be oh so important when it comes to trying to get some moves done on that start-finish straightaway, but these drivers won't have to worry about that just yet. Still worrying about saying some good lap times as Parborgi in the 0:23 jumps his way up into third, saying a 1 minute 49.350, finds himself in third overall, second of the Inter 1 drivers, as Michael Wicks in the 888 car is on the provisional pole of the Inter 1 drivers. It should be noted at this point in time, just a rough idea as to how the points are awarded. It's not rewarded overall, it's rewarded by class position. So if you're your class winner, you're going to be getting 25 points. Thank you very much, Adam, for the change of graphics. There's how our classes are looking at the moment. Inter Alien case at the front should be expected. You'll come to expect that in this series. Michael Witz on the provisional pole in Inter 2, as we just see Corwin setting a time to go up into fourth. There's Michael Witz following him right now. Stephen Case just set it another lap time right in front of him. More drivers saying sometimes on the board. The number 25 jumping his way up into fourth. He was the pace setter in that Inter 1 class in practice earlier on, so let's see if we can have any sort of big movers and shakers. But it's looking very good for Michael Witz at this point in time in the Inter 1 category. 4.5 tenths in front of Parborgi in second, but Parborgi looking to improve. He's purple in the first sector, so let's see what the driver of the 023 car can do this time by.
Yeah, you would think, as you lose a little bit of fuel here, Ron, and nearing the end of the session, you're definitely not going to be worrying about any tire wear in a short period of time like this. So, theoretically, the car should get lighter, and you should be able to, every lap, improve on your time if you're hitting those marks and hitting those lines. So we should expect to see some people improve here. As you were saying, it looks like we're pretty close in a few of the classes there, only off by a few tenths, down to about fifth place or so. He just pips one in there, another one there, Ron.
Look at that gap between Parborgi and Michael Wicks. That is 0.002 of a second. Yeah, 0.002 of a second. That is brilliantly close between those two races. I'm going to check as well. Yeah, that is just absolutely. I mean, you can get closer to that. You wouldn't really complain, though, if we had a photo finish come time for the end of this 20-minute race that we have coming up with two cars separated by 0.002 of a second. Josh, I will pick your brain a little bit and mention a moment we had not terribly long ago here on SMB with a race finish so close that our live timing software didn't even know who won, as Christopher Wang jumps his way up into sixth in the number 14 car and goes right off the track into the gravel trap, heading into turn number 1. Some 3-wide action in this qualifying session, hang down the start-finish straightaway. Won't be too shocked if we saw that a lot in the 20-minute race we have coming up, though.
Yeah, absolutely. With that monstrous front straight there, Ron, we're definitely going to see a whole bunch of that. This is a track, actually, that, as long as you can kind of keep pretty close to the guys around you, you're going to be able to just get all that time back on that last straightaway. These cars do draft, they're not maybe the most drafty cars on the service, but they're pretty drafty, and you're going to be able to pull a bunch of time down that front straightaway, even if you do lose it throughout the track. So that should kind of keep things a little bit close today. And by the times we're kind of setting here, we have one that's 0.002 of a second. Another one there, if you go down to Cardenas, is 0.010 of a second. We're pretty close. And then if you go actually down to Crown, we have another one at 0.008 of a second, as we have another incoming lap coming in right now, and we'll see if that is an improvement.
Bang! There
it is,
go.
Up to the top. So there we go. Inter Alien has been beaten, at least for the time being here, Ron, and that's a story for you.
Danush Parjorbi in that 023 car, setting in a blisteringly quick lap time to jump in front of Stephen Case. Let's see if Case is going to respond. Looking through what sort of sectors has he been tracking thus far this lap. Trying to see, it's not going to be an improvement this time by, and there's not a whole lot of time left to go in this qualifying session either, Josh. So it's looking pretty good for Parjorbi to grab not only the provisional pole in the Inter 1 category, but grab it overall. So Parborgi That's going to be a pretty good lap time from him and a very impressive performance. But let's see what Stephen Case can do in the not too far off future. Still a couple of minutes left to go in this qualifying session. But Parborgi, that was quick.
Yeah, that was a real quick one. I think it's going to be a little bit difficult here for Case. I'm not sure, I wasn't paying quite close enough attention here whether he has actually come into the pit since the beginning, but if Case is just coming out of the pit now and trying to get a lap in, don't think it's going to happen. Even if he can get those tires warmed up, he's going to be a little bit heavier on fuel, and I'm assuming here that Parborgi was definitely a little bit lighter on fuel for that one. But we're hearing in the chat here he's got a bit of support as well, so sounds like he's a pretty fast boy. And I should mention here as well, it looks like we've got some new viewers and stuff here tonight as well, so great to have you on board here with Slow Motion Broadcasting and our production here with SRG. So thank you very much, guys, and make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, and it should be a great race tonight, Ron.
Yeah, it's going to be a very great race, and the great storyline that we will be following involving Danush Parborgi maybe challenging Stephen Case, challenging the alien himself for the overall victory. That is going to be a heads-up fight between those two racers in that 20 minutes of racing action that we have coming up. Should be noted as well, a standing start come time for that 20-minute long race. As you can see, some off-track excursions. That is a terrifying point to have any sort of off-track excursion around here. Some lawn mowing on the outskirts of turn number 10 and 11. Looks like got away with one fairly scot-free there, as some drivers coming around to either start up their final laps or end their qualifying sessions here with only 2.5 minutes left to go. Josh, this qualifying session absolutely blowing by, and you can tell I was great in math class as a kid. 1.5 minutes left to go in this qualifying session.
Yeah, I think we're getting a replay of this off track here. I just looked away for 1 second and looked back up, and boom, there's a bunch of grass up in the air. So it looks like, I'm wondering there, I was going to mention, Ron, that that new debris system might be catching some people out tonight as well. Wouldn't say that this track is one that you're going to throw a ton of gravel up on, just because you really do have to kind of learn to stay out of the gravel around here. And, you can definitely pick up some gravel, but I don't think we're going to see a ton of it. But, man, if we do, it does look like it's catching people out from time to time.
Yeah, that grass and gravel, ever since iRacing reworked the physics not terribly long ago, virtually in time with this track being added into the service. In the past, especially in certain corners on the iRacing platform, notably, I believe it's turn number 3 at Summit Point, where you've got the gravel trap on the outside, you'd usually be able to just skip across that. But nowadays on iRacing, not going to be the same, doubly so, considering you can drag some gravel and grass onto the racetrack, and that will wreak havoc to some of your competitors if they look at that gravel trap the wrong way. But you can see, very close call. That was dangerous. Heading through turn number 8, the 04 having a majorly close call with the car right in front of him. That, I believe, was Jose Navas Molina in the 04 car, and that could have ended in disaster. But thankfully for those two drivers, they get away with it scot-free. Certainly hoping not to have a moment like that come time for the race we have coming up. And speaking of, this checkered flag is out in the qualifying session. Looks like Parborgi going to be starting from the pole. Stephen Case not going to be able to challenge him, so the alien certainly feeling that pressure.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I was saying in the run-up, maybe we'll find somebody who can get up into that inner alien class sooner than later, and it looks like Parborgi is, he's going to have it, I think, here. We'll see how it races. Some people are fast over a lap and then maybe not so great over the course of 20 minutes or racecraft-wise, so we're really going to have to see kind of how this one plays out there. But I'm wondering, just looking back on that little incident that we saw, just cutting across the nose of that car before it went off, if maybe that had something to do with a bit of downforce getting lifted off the front of the car, and that's why he ended up so far out onto the outside of the track there, Ron. But something they're definitely going to have to think about out there as they're following each other through these twisty corners here at Mugello.
Following through the twists and turns, 15 turns in all around this racetrack, and outside that start-finish straightaway, feels like there is no room to rest if you are one of the 19 drivers who has set a lap time in this qualifying session and will hopefully be taking to the grid in the not too far off future. Some drivers still rounding out their qualifying sessions, though. We're following one about to head their way off into turn number 10 and 11 for the last time in this session. This is Cardenas in the 92 car, currently running in 7th. And Josh, look at that gravel heading through there. The smoke and the dust going to be majorly prevalent up in the air. It's going to be very, very, very cloudy. I feel bad for Adam's graphics cards.
Yeah, absolutely. That's another thing we want to think about as well. There is the horsepower at home as well, having to drive all this new graphics and new particle systems and stuff like that out there as well. And I think we just heard him bounce off the limiter pretty hard after that as well. So I'm not sure this is going to be an improvement. It sounds like maybe he missed a shift there, but yeah, you can definitely see that particle system working. I'd say it's a little overdone at this stage here in iRacing, but I think they're on it. They're probably going to fix that up pretty soon. And it's kind of inconclusive. I've been out racing a few times now and haven't really decided whether or not I can feel it under me at any given moment. So not really sure what to think about that quite yet, but perhaps we can answer some of those questions tonight.
Yeah, we'll have those unanswered questions coming into this race, but by the end of it, I feel like we'll have some answers and some more questions to ask throughout the rest of this season. But at this point in time, there's a lot of questions riding in my head. Will we be able to see a heads-up fight between Danush Parborgi between now and the end of this race? I apologize, Danush. I feel like every single time I mention you, I'm giving a different pronunciation. I apologize.
We'll get it by the end of the season here, buddy.
That we certainly will, Josh. But anyway, oh boy, I'm even got voice cracks here. But anyways, moving on from that and talking about the starting grid, it's going to be Danush starting this race from the pole. Stephen Case going to join him on the front row. Then we have Varun in the number 25 going to be starting in 3rd. Kalen Michaelwitz going to be starting this race in 4th. Tyrone De Silva going to be starting this race in P5. Daniel Labivwi, I believe would be the correct pronunciation of that driver's name, rounding out your 3rd row. Then we have Rafael Cardenas grabbing the Inter 2 pole position, starting this race in 7th. Christopher Wang going to join him on that 4th row. Jason Cotcher in 9th. Joshua Corwin in 10th. Jose Navas starting this race in 11th. Rodolfo Samoido, I believe would be the pronunciation of the driver, starting this race in 12th. And looking through the rest of the drivers that we have in this field, a lot of race cars to talk about in this 20-minute race that we have coming up. Starting this race in 13th, as long as we can get that WD-40 on the graphics. There we go. Thank you very much, Adam.
There we go.
Starting this race in 13th is going to be Sarub Vaiz in the number 30 car. Tyler Hagen in 14th. Ken Glasser in 15th. Paul M in P16. A jump start already, so I think we may need to tie that bow around that and talk about the green flag, which is out, and the drivers are on their way, heading their way off into turn number 1 in just a couple of moments' time. That was a jump start, a big jump start, a little bit farther in the back. We'll try and figure out who that was. But heading into turn number 1, it's Penborgi leading over Stephen Case. Michaelwitz making up some spots already on the number 25. But looking at these racers trying to negotiate the first few corners of this race as cleanly as they can. But the grass and the gravel and those anti-cut curbs on the inside will be very ominous to these racers at the start.
Yeah, so far we got a nice clean start there as we saw Paborgi just making sure that he swept over and cut that line off so that Stephen Case didn't even think about trying to come up the inside of him here on the first lap. So it looks like we're pretty clean here as we're on board with Michaelwitz. Looking back here at Varun, I believe it was Varun? We're going to get these names right. Varun, yep, that's right, Varun. Looking back at him there now, everybody's looking pretty clean on this first lap. We got somebody kind of touching the gravel just a little bit there. But so far, we are looking pretty good throughout the classes, Ron, with Paborgi out front.
Yeah, just about the entirety of this grid, making through the first 2/3 of this lap clean. Don't want to jinx these drivers, though, is about to head their way off into turn number 12 for the first time. Some side-by-side racing, though, possibly developing here, involving Labivi in the 069 car. He's now going to be feeling a challenge, but looking at a side-by-side fight involving Cardenas, who's leading in the Inter 2 category for now, but certainly feeling a lot of pressure around him. The 069 of Labivi running right behind. We may have a side-by-side fight to talk about in the not too far off future. Cardenas, on the other hand, you have to go 1.8 seconds farther up the road to find De Silva in 5th. However, we now have a fight on our hands. Corwin in the 037, the Inter 1 driver, now going to be side-by-side, hang off into turn 1.
Yeah, that was quite the defense that Cardenas put up there, and it looks like he's going to have to deal with both of them here real soon. We got a lock up on the inside there, just keeping her under control, though. Very well done there for Lebevi. Very well done for him up the inside to keep the control and not get into Cardenas there, as finally Cardenas cracks and he gets by here. It looks like he's going to try to stem the bleeding for now. Not an easy place here to get around someone, Ron. It looks like he's going to hold off just for now.
Yeah, holding off on that position for the time being, but we're definitely going to be seeing some more challenges between now and the end of this. But look at that, running incredibly wide into the corner is Cotcher. Wang, I think, just ran very wide coming around turn number 7 a couple of moments ago. And Wang now dropping back. I think he had a brief disconnect there, trying to shake some of the stones off of that race car. But Christopher Wang still running in at 10th. Look at the dust being picked up into the air. Look at that. It looks like we're running in the rain, Josh, with the amount of dirt and dust and gravel around this racetrack. And that's going to be a problem that unless these drivers are super, super careful and handle this racetrack with kit gloves, that's going to be a problem that gets worse.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I was saying on the run up there, this isn't usually a place where you dip a wheel too often, just because the line, you know, you have to stay on line, and it's just so difficult to stay on line around here sometimes, though. And unfortunately, it looks like we're starting to kick some gravel up, and you know, other than being just sort of a visual nuisance to you, it can actually start to pile up and make things a little bit difficult there for you as well. You can pick that up on the tire, and it will make the tire not perform quite as well. So we should definitely keep an eye on that and see how it's going to play out here as we're looking at Joshua Crown now down this massive straightaway into T1. You can see that draft working. Pretty powerful draft in the F4 cars. I'd say it probably starts to kick in right around 1 second or so behind the guy in front of you, and you can really start to feel it, but wasn't quite enough to get up the back of Cardenas there quite yet.
Yeah, Corwin finding himself in a small little hornet's nest at the moment. You can say it's firmly 4, tentatively 5 cars. Christopher Wang a little bit farther in the back in the number 14 car, running in 10th at the moment, about a half a second behind Cotcher, who's about a half a second behind Corwin, who is not very far behind Cardenas, who is still leading in the Inter 2 category. Looking at some racing forming a little bit farther behind. This is Jose Fuentes in the number 89 car. May find himself side by side in the not too far off future with Hyde in the number 93. Those two cars covered by about 0.6 of a second, heading their way all through turn number 6 and 7 right now, running in 16th and 17th. And you can see the dust still getting kicked up in the air as a big slide.
We got a bunch of
That's
dirt.
Mugello in the number 34 car going sideways, slideways, coming at turn number 8. Thankfully, though, Hyde and Fuentes take some pretty good evasive maneuvers to try and avoid that spinning car over Adolfo Samuda. We're going to ride on board and follow the driver, the number 34 car, having some disconnect issues in the process, runs wide hang through turn number 7, adds some dirt on his tires, and just going to spin around like a top hang through turn number 8.
Well, I think we pretty much answered our question there, didn't we, Ron? He picked up enough dirt that it looked like there wasn't any rubber left on that tire. And I know, you know, people are going to say, oh, it's just visual. And you know what? It probably is. Most of it is, and we kind of know that. But I would have to say that that definitely was part of that spin here. You can see he did go off. He did pick up a lot of dirt and then back on. He's just got no grip left. And Fuentes with the just pretty good awareness there. He saw it coming. You can kind of tell in the car he's picking, should I go inside? Should I go outside? Should I go inside? Should I go outside? And he just got her done there. And nice to save the car right at the end there. As we're looking at it, looks like we got to pass into T1 here, Ron.
Yeah, it looks like we did. Stephen Case, who started this race in second behind Danush Parborgi. Let's see. Oh, and you can see contact being made with Parborgi and Mikowitz heading out of turn number 1 into turn 2. That could have ended an absolute disaster for both of those racers, still running in second and third as it stands at this present moment. Stephen Case, the inter-alien racer to be a bit more precise, finally getting that move done to slip his way up in front of Parborgi. But at this point in time, Parborgi going to be enjoying that draft. Mikowitz, though, he may try and strike while the iron's hot. This fight is still very much on between these drivers, as Stephen Case still trying to pull at that gap, now about 3/4 of a second, heading their way off into turn number 12 at the end of this 4th lap. But, Josh, we got to think about this a little bit earlier than we usually do in terms of the broadcast that we do together. We're slowly but surely approaching that halfway mark. Only 13 minutes left on the clock, but still a lot left to be decided.
Yeah, absolutely. And if it's anything, the last couple laps have shown here, it is definitely still all to play for here at the top. And you cannot blame Mikowitz here for taking advantage there and trying to go for that move. Did look a little bit ill-advised, but he backed out of it and he stayed alive for another one. It looks like he's going to try for another one on this massive straightaway here. Up the outside around here, almost never going to work, but let's see if he can't get it done wrong.
Here we go. Parborgi and Mikowitz side by side hang into turn number 1. Look at Parborgi on the inside line. Mikowitz running incredibly wide into turn number 1. That's going to allow the 25 to slip around him, around the outside through turn number 2, and he gets the move done. Mikowitz dropping back down to 4th. I think there may have been a possible off-track encounter involving Cotcher and Cardenas not terribly long ago following the 069. And there it is. There's Jason Cotcher in the 422 car. He's now running in 8th. Cardenas still leading in the Inter 2 class, running in P9. They've shaken off any sort of challenge from Christopher Wang, as he's now about 1.8 seconds back. As look at this, 3 wide in that replay, heading off into turn 1. Jason Cotcher in the 422 car. I think I may need to amend myself. He didn't have an off-track excursion. Instead, the driver who did have an off-track excursion was the one that he overtook of Rafael Cardenas in the 92 car. I think I may have spoken too early, Josh. I think he just ran wide coming out of turn number 9, and that's near disaster heading into 10.
Yeah, it's all happening at once here, and that's just the way it happens sometimes, especially, you're just mentioning we're hitting, pretty close to around the midpoint of the race here. This is when you start to think, okay, my car's feeling pretty good. I'm feeling pretty good about this. I think I got the guy's number in front of me, and you start trying to make moves, and it also just happens to be the time of the race when there's a bunch of pickup on the ground, as we're seeing here, and I think we've pretty definitively answered the question of whether or not this particle system makes your tire slippery, as we saw even up into T1. I believe it was Mikowitz there trying to make as we get another one up the outside. Good recovery there for the 93 to keep it on the track and kind of try to get back into the fight there. But back to my point there, as we saw Mikowitz kind of trying to go out around the outside, and it looks to me, Ron, like he actually picked up probably some rubber on the outside of the track or some dirt, and he just couldn't hold it together.
Yeah, that may have been what happened. The marbles building up on the outside of these corners as a near disaster involving Hyde and Samudo heading through turn number 15. That could have ended in tears for the both of them. Thankfully, though, they avoid contact, but it was borderline as Jose Fuentes looking to pick up the pieces from that checkup from Samudo heading through that final corner. Fuentes looking to try and absorb any sort of momentum that Samudo lost to get a move done, heading off into turn number 1. He had the SpongeBob car. That's a cheap pun. I would like to apologize. But the driver of the number 89 car getting the move done to slip his way up into 17th. But as that side-by-side racing was going on, here was a moment involving Vase in the 30. You could see heading through turn number 8 right now, the gravel still prevalent through that corner. And I think, oh boy, this is very odd looking here. Was that some sort of possible mechanical
we might be having a hardware failure or something there, potentially, Ron. Yeah, that didn't look too much like it was driver error or anything game related. It looked like potentially we had a hardware failure there, or possibly something he had to get to real quick. So yeah, we'll have to look into that after the race, but I don't think that was any fault of his own.
Yeah, it is tough to have stuff like that happen, but in the world of racing, things can happen.
We got some smoke in the air back there.
Oh, and oh boy, that's a big wreck involving Navas Molina in the 04 car. He was running inside the top 10 along with Day. Actually, no, that's Cardenas. My apologies. That is some. It looked like pretty significant damage there. What in the world? It looked like those two race cars were ready for the scrap heap. Either way, a lot more gravel, dirt, and debris through that very quick section of 13 and 14. As you can see, contact being made with Cardenas, and I believe, and that was a boy. Cardenas trying to rejoin the track in the 04 with nowhere to go. That all started with a little bit of contact between Cardenas and I believe it was Chris Wang in the 14 car, and just snowballs out of control, and have something like that happen tough for all the drivers involved.
Yeah, unfortunate there, Ron. As we saw, of course, the damage coming back together. That's of course because the session's been set with no damage on out here, so that we can actually have you can have another go at it basically. So if anybody's wondering why the wheels popped back on there and they're back out racing, that's why. We just have damage disabled on this particular session here. So yeah, that was a pretty big one. No fault of Cardenas there in the beginning. It looks like he just kind of spun on his own, racing for position, and then didn't really think about the rejoin too well, nor did the car behind him really slow down too much, and that's kind of what happens when those two things come together, Ron. And fortunately, we have damage off, and they're able to get out there and do some more racing.
Jumping back now to the live action and following Parborgi. Actually, my apologies. Here is another replay of the moment involving Jose Navas Molina in the 04 car and picking through the smoke. Nowhere to go. That was a hellacious impact for both of those two race cars. Very lucky that damage isn't enabled. Otherwise, their mechanics would have to be drinking cases of Red Bull to try and get those cars repaired come time for the next race of this season. But look at the weaving heading down that start-finish straight away. This pack, it was 4 cars. It's now 3. Stephen Case has completely checked that. Now 2.5 seconds in front of the driver running in second as Michaelwitz maybe trying to get a move done on Parborgi. Heading through turn number 1. These two went side by side through this section not terribly long ago. They're side by side yet again and still remaining side by side into turn number 2. Nearly coming to blows. Michaelwitz not able to get that move done on Parborgi, but Parborgi hitting that anti-cut curb through turn 3. It is not over at all. Look at Michaelwitz tried that outside line, now switching it to the inside, not close enough to try and even think about that maneuver, heading off through the braking zone of turn number 4. But as that side-by-side racing has been going on, some side-by-side racing a little bit farther in the back involving Glasser and Day. One in the 41, the other in the 11, and side-by-side through turn number 1 ends in Glasser getting the move done to slip his way up into 11th. Michaelwitz and Parborgi may have swapped positions yet again. Those two losing out on a boatload of time to the driver running in P2, Ballas Subramaniam in the 25 car. He's running about 2.5 seconds back of Stephen Case and 2 seconds in front of Michaelwitz. Those 3 cars were basically vacuum sealed together heading down the start-finish straightaway, a matter of less than a lap ago as Parborgi runs wide and has a bit of a lockup into turn number 12. But it shows, yeah, some side-by-side racing could kill your momentum. They were close a matter of a lap ago. Now it's 2 seconds between Michaelwitz and the driver of the 25.
Yeah, just bleeding time when you're out there racing, as we got another little off track there, and we're going to get Cardenas. Was that Cardenas getting by? Nope, that was Day going off and Cardenas getting by there. So yeah, back to your point though, Ron, any sort of fighting with anybody or off tracks or anything just can't be done around here. You're going to get caught really quickly, as we saw there with the 2 second gap. We're also noticing there that outside line into T1 just doesn't work. And, I've known that from a couple of races around here myself, as Cardenas almost getting his nose chopped off there. Wow, that was a really close one. Really good avoidance from everybody around him, and he's able to fight another day. But I kind of lost my train of thought as Cardenas there almost got the front of his car chopped right off, Ron.
I believe the point that you were going to raise there, Josh, was talking about the maneuvers into turn number 1 and how not a lot of them have really stuck, as we're going to take a look at Cardenas and the grip of his car, not really sticking it to the road, and you can see that near disaster with himself and the number 11 coming out of turn number 9. That could have ended in absolute disaster. You can see the dirt and debris and all of this. Hits the curb on the inside through turn number 11. No harm, no foul done there. However, into turn 12, you can see that gravel and dust and dirt and everything. The understeer creeping in into the grass, touches it a little bit. That was a big sideways snap for Cardenas, and he holds on to it in the number 92 car. Wow. Not sure how he was able to do that, because that was incredibly sideways, but well held from Cardenas in the number 92. Certainly had a scary moment, but thankfully kept his race car clean.
Yeah, absolutely. That was well held for sure. And yeah, so back to my point there. T1, the corner, T1 just not working on the outside. And I think it probably has a lot to do with the debris and just the design of the corner as well. You think you're going to be okay to get, maybe up the inside into T1 after that outside move. But I think the track's probably just a bit longer there, and it just doesn't work out. It almost never works, as we saw again there. Michaelwitz trying to make it happen, and just didn't happen.
And you can see that we're raising the incident points and the estimations, the rough estimations. It should be noted at this point in time. Yeah, it only shows off-track encounters that some of these drivers have had. So that is very much so a rough estimate as side-by-side racing nearly into turn 13 and 14 with Day and Cardenas. That could have ended in disaster because side-by-side through that section, it's so hard heading through that section single file, let alone side by side, as we may have some side by side racing in the not too far off future involving Labivi running right behind Jason Cotcher. So the series admin going side by side with the driver of the 069 car hanging off into turn number 1 a few moments ago as a side by side racing going to flare up still involving Cardenas and Day. And look at Grunsky in the number 3 car involved in this battle as well, but side by side with Day on the outside line, very close to making contact through turn number 1. Day gonna have to run wide, still on the inside through turn number 2, but he's gonna need to take some stones there. That could have ended in absolute heartbreak, so close to making contact. Day, I give Neil Day credit where credit's due. The fact he even thought about going for the move on the inside into turn number 2, holding his own around the outside through 1 and sticking with it. Of course, not successful as he still finds himself in 14th as Cardenas actually pulling out about a quarter of a second, 3/4 of a second gap now to about a second, heading through turn number 6 and 7. So credit where credit's due to Neil Day, the fact he did not back out of that.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks like Cardenas is on the comeback drive here as well. We know he's got a bit of pace. He's a bit out of place right now as well. But yeah, him and Day just cutting shapes there for a few laps. Cardenas finally getting by him here to try to make his way back up. Maybe into the points? Probably not with the time we have left here, unfortunately. But looking back up at the front here, I think we have Stephen Case and I believe it was Varun and Mikowitz have kind of spaced out a little bit now, and we're not really looking at too much of a race up front at the moment, but a few other classes kind of heating up as well there, Ron.
Oh, and you can see the bump and run attempted hang through turn number 1. That was Joshua Corwin. Nearly, I say nearly, it was definitely contact being made with himself and De Silva through turn number 1. So a bump and run, usually you'd see that in a NASCAR stock car, not in a Formula 4 car, and that's part of the reason why that is the case. Thankfully, no damage for these racers to try and pick up as we go back and see some side-by-side racing continuing involving Grunsky in the 3 and Neil Day in the 11 side-by-side. About to head their way into the braking zone of turn 1 in a few moments time. Day on the inside line go to hold his own as Grunsky trying to get a move done, going for the switchback as the 11 runs wide. The 11 going off into the gravel. I think he kissed the gravel more than anything else, but Neil Day running off the circuit, going to lose out on that 14th spot to Grunsky.
So I believe we are on the white flag lap right now, Ron. So we're going to be finishing her up here. I believe we can get up to the front there and see if we can have a look at Stephen Case. And I believe maybe that Mikowitz and Varun here are still pretty close to each other. Maybe not close enough to actually make anything happen here, but on the white flag lap, it looks like the battle up at the front has kind of settled itself out here as Stephen Case taking the win today.
Stephen Case, the inter-alien, going to be taking the checkered flag, and we're looking now at the side-by-side racing a little bit farther behind some drivers running for the podium spots in the Inter 2 category that's currently being led by Chris Wang in the number 14 car. That was Gardenis and Glasser side-by-side through turn number 10 a couple of moments ago, and winning in the Inter 1 category, I should say, is going to be Balasubramaniam in the number 25 car, but the fight is still going to be on between these two. They're going to be coming to the checkered flag in a couple of moments. Time. Look at Glasser incredibly deep into the brakes into turn number 15, trying to arc it through the corner and maybe save up a run, but I don't think it's going to be enough to usurp Gardenis, who had a very up and down race in the number 92 car. He's going to finish in 11th, third of the Inter 2 racers. But it's Stephen Case withstanding the challenge that originally seemed like it was going to be from Danush Parborgi. But he was able to get that move done, and ever since then, Stephen Case completely checked out, winning this race 2.5 seconds farther up the road from the driver, the number 25, in second. A brilliant drive from Casey, a brilliant driver from all of our class winners, and a really exciting way to kick the season off here on SMB, as we have a spin there with Paul M in the number 55 through the final corner. Haven't really mentioned the driver of the 55, but he goes for a spin, trying to earn some extra style points at the end of this race. But Josh, pretty good way to kick off this brand new adventure here on SMB.
Yeah, absolutely, Ron. That was a really great race, really from beginning to end. We kept it clean for most of it. We got some really good battles back and forth throughout the field in every class. Really good race so far, for sure. With not too many crashes or anything either. And it looks like, yeah, we can get to the winners here, Ron.
Yeah, that we can take a look at the results. It's going to be Stephen Case, the Inter-Alien, putting in a alien performance, shall we say, winning it. I say alien. It's not a foreign act for him to go out and just grab the victory. He is a very fast driver and does it yet again here at Mugello, winning in the Inter-Alien class, winning this race overall in the 243 car. He wins it over Varun Balasubramaniam, finishing this race in second, 2.5 seconds back. The driver of the number 25 car wins the Inter 1 category, finishing P2 overall. Caitlin Michaelwitz going to finish second of the Inter 2 racers, third overall. Danush Parborgi finishes in fourth. Joshua Corn in fifth. Tyrone De Silva in P6, P5 of the Inter 1 drivers. Jason Cotcher finishes in seventh, and Daniel Labivi, I apologize for the name pronunciation there.
Lubivi, I think.
Lubivi, there we go. So Daniel Lubivi running at your Inter 1 racers, finishing 8th overall. Christopher Wang, the driver of the number 14 car, going to be taking the checkered flag, the top of the Inter 2 drivers. Jose Navas going to be finishing in 10th. Rafael Cardenas, my apologies, going to be finishing this race in 11th. Then we have Ken Glasser in 12th, Tyler Hagan in 13th, Igor Grunsky finishing this race in 14th, Neil Day in 15th, and Brite Hyde finishing this race in the 16th spot. Aaron Van Wagner, who I believe started this race down in pit lane, going to be finishing it in 17th. Samudo finishing in 18th. Jose Fuentes in 19th. Paul M in 20th. And Vase running at your 21 cars classified from this race. Running into some possible hardware failures earlier on. And we've got an alien joining us in the commentary booth. Hello, Adam.
We have an actual
Alex
hey,
in the YouTube chat said Sarub's or Vase's pedal stopped working midway through the race. So
that's what
the
that
answer
was.
for that one.
Right.
Goodbye, guys.
That makes sense.
Gotcha. Thank you very much, Adam, and thank you for all the hard work that you do behind the scenes. I mean, Josh, you're a producer, and you've told me on many, many occasions that being a producer is very difficult, both for your PC and for the mind. But Adam, thank you very much for all the hard work behind the scenes for this broadcast, making it as cool as it was. And, Josh, we've got some drivers waiting in the interview waiting area. We have one driver waiting there at the moment that I believe maybe Varun. I'm going to try and get full confirmation about it. I see him in the interview waiting area. So, Josh, would you like to have a driver? Would you like to have a chat with Varun? I will make sure I will give you permission not to say his last name because I can barely pronounce it as is. So I don't want to throw you under the bus there. But would you like to have a chat with him?
Yeah, perhaps we can get some confirmation on that as well. But welcome in, Varun. Great race out there today. It looks like you had quite a bit of action going on in front of you, and we're really able to capitalize on it here and come out with a pretty good place today. Maybe you can explain how you did it.
Yeah, for sure. Didn't get off to I wouldn't say the best start. I think I caught myself lagging on the brakes off the start. And I believe Kalen got in front of me. And I was content staying behind him because through qualifying and practice, we were running within a tenth or 2/10 of each other. So I was content sitting behind him. And then when who was it? I think when Danush made a mistake into one, he forced Kalen wide, and I got past. And then he did the same thing again next lap. And from that point on, it was smooth sailing. I was confident in my pace. I could run a 48.4 over and over.
Nice. And sometimes that's what it takes, right? Is that confidence in the pace you have, and you can just get out there and click laps and maybe let the people in front of you fight for the position that they want to fight for. And today you definitely came out on top there. So we did notice actually going into T1 that outside line just doesn't seem to want to work, as we watched, I believe it was Kellen Michaelwitz there try on the outside a couple times, and a few other drivers as well. Just can't seem to make that line work. I got two questions for you. That line, does it work? And the second one being, there's a lot of debris out there today and a lot of rubber on the side of the road and gravel being flicked up everywhere. Are you feeling that out there under the car, or is that something you're just kind of putting behind you?
For regarding the outside of turn 1, it's what you're saying is perfectly correct. Unless you have a significant pace advantage, I'd say more than half a second, almost a second, there's no chance you're holding it around the outside, especially because it's really dirty out there. And then when it comes to the rocks, the sand all over the track, it's not really noticeable. The moment you see it and feel it get on your tires is when you're kind of wary for the next corner or two, because especially going through some of the flat right-handers, if you can see any of those marbles, rocks, sand on your tires, you know for a fact the next turn you're going to completely wash out. And the last thing anyone wants is to get DQ'd.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. Yeah, so we're kind of wondering there because it did look like sometimes it kind of matters. And I know that, we've been talking about it just in the iRacing community for the last week or two, that they've obviously kind of overdone it just a little bit with the way that it's flying around, and it is. And just kind of wondering, even myself, after a few races, whether, how much it is actually affecting the tires. And I haven't really been able to kind of come to a full-on conclusion as to how much it's actually affecting them. The visual minus the or with the feel kind of makes it hard to figure out what's actually going on underneath you. But I think that's some pretty good insight from you there as well. So yeah, pretty good race today out there. I believe which track are we headed to next there, Ron? Do you have the schedule in front of you? I'm just gonna pull it up here quickly. I believe we are headed to Rudskogen next. Is that a track that you like? I know, I've raced there a few times myself, and it can be a bit of a difficult track, Rudskogen. So what are you thinking about that one?
I enjoy the track. Let's just say I like more flowing tracks, and it's kind of stop-start. It's a fun track to drive, but it takes a little bit to get into the rhythms. It just depends on how I feel next week. Sometimes I'm in the rhythm, sometimes I'm out of it.
Yep, I think that's probably a good way to put Rudskogen. You kind of get one corner wrong too, or if you're just having a bad day and you can't get in that rhythm, it can just be a really hard one, leaning on the tires all afternoon. So really good performance out there today, Varun. And is there anybody you'd like to say thanks to?
My mom, my dad, Jason for hosting me inside SRG. Everyone who showed up to the race tonight. And you guys for hosting it and broadcasting it.
Awesome. Right on, man. Well, good luck for next weekend. Have a good week here, and we'll check you out the next race.
Thank you. Looking forward to it.
Right on.
And that right there was Varun, the driver of the number 25 car, taking the win of the Inter 1 drivers. And I see that Stephen Case, our Inter alien, is waiting up there in the interview waiting area. So I'll drag him into the commentary booth. Have a quick little chat with the Inter alien himself, Stephen Case. Well done on grabbing the victory here at Mugello. And talk us through the race that we just saw here tonight.
Hey, how's it going?
Doing pretty all right, man. How about yourself? I'm sure you're pretty happy about spraying some champagne in Victory Lane.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, it was a good race. Danush, he got me on qualifying, and I knew Danush, he can be inconsistent sometimes, so I just tried to be patient, and that seemed to pay off later in the race, and was able to get by him and just hold the lead.
Well, able to get that move done, and after that, it looked like you were entirely checked out from this race. But I'm sure, from our perspective in the commentary booth, that's probably a little bit misleading. This track looked like it was quite the handful, doubly so with the amount of dirt and gravel out there on the racetrack. So I want to ask you about some of the challenges that you felt were a bit prevalent here at Mugello.
Yeah, the new debris system is definitely a challenge. You gotta make sure you're not 10/10ths when there's that gravel on the road, because that'll bite you. So most of the race I was, lifting a tad just before turn-in, just to give myself a little bit of room for error.
Yeah, always have to have a small little cushion around a racetrack like this, doubly so considering that gravel and the grass and everything around this track kind of looms very ominously, especially in races like this where the action can get really, really tense. And now we're going to be heading to Rudskogen, I believe, for the next race of this season. So a little bit of a departure from Mugello, switching out the sunny Italian skies for the slightly overcast ones of Norway, and a very different racetrack there as well. So what are your thoughts heading into that race in 1 week's time?
Honestly, I don't know all the tracks by name that well. I'm still fairly new to iRacing, so I couldn't tell you exactly which track that is by just hearing the name. So I don't have a lot of input, unfortunately.
Fair enough. I mean, honestly, Rudskogen, it took me a little bit to kind of realize that track was actually on iRacing at all, so I can't necessarily blame you at all for that, Steven, but I'm sure just based off the pace that you showed here at Mugello, you're probably going to be feeling confident once you get a bit more practice in and try and figure out how the commute's going to be to get to that track up there in Norway. It is a very odd racetrack, to be sure, and a pretty interesting one in history as well. But, Steven, I will let you go and celebrate this victory here at Mugello after one more question. That being, is there anyone you want to give a thanks to or shout out?
I want to thank Jason from SRG for putting on this league. Like it's a pretty awesome thing that we're able to do, and then you guys for able to do this broadcast. It was pretty amazing watching it just a minute ago.
Awesome, man. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed the show. It seems like a lot of people out there have been enjoying the show. But, Steven, we enjoyed the show you put out there on the racetrack, grabbing the victory here at Mugello, and awesome to see you back out on the racetrack for the rest of the season. Thank you for joining us, and congratulations on the win.
Thank you. See you guys.
And that right there was Steven Case, your winner of this race overall. And we got a bit more time left, so we're going to bring in Christopher Wang. And, Josh, I'll let you take this one.
Hey, how's it going, Christopher? You got the win today there. Looks like out in front of you in your class there was a bit of attrition. I believe it was Cardenas there who ended up kind of falling to the wayside with an accident. You were able to monopolize on that. Tell us what you saw.
Hello. Yeah, I managed to qualify pretty well today and was kind of following along with Raphael, and I thought the Varun was also in there too, just a little number mix up there. And I guess they were kind of slowing each other down a little bit, racing each other, and all of a sudden I see Raph in front of me, and then I see Raph sideways, and to dive off the track to try and not hit him, and managed to just kind of stay smooth throughout for the rest of it.
Yeah, definitely. So you're able to monopolize there, and then the key being able to stay smooth and consistent after that till the end of the race and hold on to that position, and you're able to take the win there as well. And we were talking to some of your competitors there today about going into T1 and how the outside line just doesn't work, but maybe more importantly how that new debris system and particle system out there just causing some mayhem. Were you feeling that out there as well today?
On that last lap, I was. I don't know what turn number it is, but coming up after the long, flat out or almost flat out series of right-handers where you go down and up the hill, there's a chicane right after that, right, left. And my wheels got filled with sand and locked up going into that braking zone, and I got very scared. I think I managed to keep it on track on that one and not get off the track, not get any incident points there, but it was a moment of, oh, there's a lot of sand here. Oh, my wheels are not moving anymore. What's going on?
Yeah, I think we had some similar sentiments there coming from your competitors as well, where you kind of just, when you see that, you kind of just have to pull back 5 or 10% when you dive into that corner just to make sure that you're not going to end up off the road because of the debris on the road. And of course, we're seeing and the kind of conversation we're having internally in iRacing and not internally at iRacing, but the people playing iRacing there is, that the particle system, the visuals are just a little bit much at the moment. And I'm sure you guys having to deal with that out there today as well. But I believe we're headed out to Rudskogen for our next track here. Have you been out there? Is that one of your fave tracks or not so much?
Rudskogen, I do like Rudskogen. I don't know.
Yeah, it's either a love-hate, as you can hear, producer. Not a big fan of Rudskogen. I'm kind of a love or hate with it, to be honest. It kind of, for me, depends on the car that I'm driving around it. I think the F4 should fare fairly well around there.
Yeah, I guess I have more experience in the FF1600, the rookie formula car around there. But generally, I enjoy at least hot lapping around that. Of course, hot lapping and racing can always be very different in how a track does.
Yeah, absolutely different from hot laps. Always different than race day itself, for sure. But so you wrapped up the win today, Christopher. Super good drive. Is there anybody you'd like to thank out there?
I was thinking
Yeah,
about
that's
my other
Mhm.
racers first. Definitely thank
Yeah,
you
that's
guys
fair.
for coming on
That's
and
fair.
hosting this great
Mhm.
broadcast. I'm sure to rewatch it afterwards and see what's going on with
Excellent.
the rest of the
Watch
race.
and share. Yeah, our producer getting the guerrilla style broadcasting there. You will watch and you will enjoy it.
And
so,
I do
yeah,
like
so-
a threat.
Yep.
I do want to thank Jason Cotcher just for setting up this whole thing in the first place, this whole Sim Racers group, and bringing us all together and continuing to expand this big old network.
Yeah,
Now we're here.
absolutely. I can tell you, the admins and broadcasters and stuff working in the background here. It's a lot of work in the background, and Jason's doing a great job for you guys. And we're really happy to be on board with you guys as well. So thank you very much, Christopher. We will see you next week at Rudskogen, and hopefully you can come off with another one.
Thank you guys. See you next week.
And that right there was Christopher Wang, your winner in the Inter 2 category here at Mugello. The first ever race broadcast of the F4 Intermediate Championship, the SRG F4 Intermediate Championship. A pretty good race here at Mugello. And I'll tell you what here, Josh, the racing action simply does not stop here at Slow Motion Broadcasting. I'm going to have to wait a couple of days until there's another broadcast here at SMB. But once we hit the weekend, the action is going to be coming at you with the Formula Vs running at the New Hampshire Motor Speedway road course with some rain in the air
Ooh, that
as
should
well.
be an
That's going to be
interesting one.
Yeah, that's going to be a really fun one, Josh. We're both going to be on that broadcast together, and that's going to be super enjoyable. Meanwhile, you're going to be on track come time for Sunday with the Formula Fords running around Snetterton on the 200 layout. Talk about a draft fest. And speaking of draft fest, Spec Racer Fords running at Spa.
Big
That
draft
is
at
going
Spa.
to be a big game of leapfrog if ever I saw one. Coming up this next Wednesday in 1 week's time here on Slow Motion Broadcasting, we got a doubleheader. The Group 2 action from the Ray Esports Club Racing League, 70 minutes of GT4 action going to come at you at Watkins Glen. And then later on that night, the action from the SRG F4 Intermediate Championship, the next race of the season at Rudskogen. All of the action to look forward to here on Slow Motion Broadcasting. And if that doesn't give you a reason to subscribe and hit that notification bell, I really don't know what does. But Josh, this was a fantastic way to kick this season off. Some incidents to be sure, but some fantastic winners and some fantastic racing all throughout. A great way to kick off this brand new adventure here at SMB.
Yeah, absolutely, Ron. Great track to start on here. I've always been a big fan of Mugello, and once again, it didn't disappoint here with the SRG guys, and it's been pretty great to sit in for commentary this one. I will most likely not be around. I might be back, a couple times this season for some commentary, maybe fill in for some producing here and there, but it's been my pleasure to be part of the SRG thing here in our round one and their week 3 here at the F4 SRG Championship. So it's been a really good one, Ron. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you again next week.
And thank you as well, Josh. Thank you as well, Adam, for producing this broadcast. Stevie, Ray, Jason Cotcher, and all the people behind the scenes making this broadcast and all the stuff here at SMB possible. But I think for this broadcast and everything that you just saw here on SMB at Mugello from round number 3 of the SRG Intermediate F4 Championship, that will just about do it. So for myself, Ron Maunz, Joshua Wilkie joining me in the commentary booth, and Adam Thompson doing a wonderful job working all the cameras in the virtual production hauler, I say thank you all so very much for watching. Have a great rest of your night, and we'll see you all again wherever it is in the not too distant future.